I'm Terry Sullivan, this is Dave Drason, and this is what you've been waiting for, another exciting, hopefully, edition of Bigtime Memories. And I think it is a good show today.
Oh, the emails and the messages that we got are, just overflowing. I mean, we appreciate you taking the time to watch our shows. We hope you enjoy them. We enjoy your comments. We, look forward to any, suggestions that you may have. And today's episode is one of the most requested guys that I can remember us having in, the last couple months, from our comments. And that would be on Guy Mitchell, the Stomper.
Stomper, one of my best friends in wrestling.
Yeah. His name was really John Hill, and he was born July 8th, 1941 in Hamilton, Ontario. He was one of 11 children.
Wow.
So maybe that's why he got into wrestling, because he didn't get a lot of attention.
He got a lot of experience with his brothers and sisters.
Yeah, but as a kid, he played hockey, and he was an amateur boxer.
A Canadian who played hockey, imagine that. How about that?
And as usual, somebody from Hamilton, Ontario, where do you go when you want to train? You go to Al Spittle's or the Jack Wentworth gyms?
It's a funny thing about Hamilton is Guy Mitchell himself at one point in time remarked Hamilton was known as a wrestling factory with streets.
Yep.
There were so many wrestlers that you would be familiar with who came out of Hamilton. For example, Ben and Mike Sharp, the Sharp brothers, huge tag team back in the 50s and early 60s. Bill Terry, who went on to become Kurt Von Hess. Billy Red Lyons, Bruiser Bedlam, Johnny Canine.
Yep.
Ethan Page from AEW is from Hamilton. Bruce Swayze, John Quinn, the Kentucky Butcher. Paul DeMarco, Murray Cummings, George and Sandy Scott, the Tolis brothers. What about Dewey?
Dewey Robertson. The missing link.
Yeah, I tell you, just an amazing number of people.
Yeah, I'm at Hamilton. They supplied. I mean, if you look at a lot of the cards in not only Toronto and all through Ontario and through the Michigan, Ohio territory that the Sheik had, Big Time Wrestling. Most of these guys were on it. Almost every card.
Yeah.
And Guy Mitchell, the Stomper, he was one of those that came out of that factory. Really
amazing story.
He made his wrestling debut in 1959, and he was mostly an enhancement talent. Wrestling as Guy Mitchell.
Yeah.
And at one, that was mainly throughout Ontario. And then he came to the United States to try to make some money, because he really wasn't making much money, in his home country. And he went down to Georgia, and he went there using the name Guy Hill, his real name. But one of the newspapers that were promoting that show down there mistook his name, and they put Mitchell, Guy Mitchell instead of Guy Hill. And that's how he became Guy Mitchell, going forward. But over his career, he used Guy Mitchell, Guy Hill. At one point around Indianapolis, he used Guy Heenan.
That's right.
They said he was a brother or a cousin of Bobby Heenan, trying to take advantage of that success that Bobby was having in the early 1960s.
He was really something, had a lot of different incarnations of both with and without a mask. As a masked wrestler, he was the assassin, the strangler,
the destroyer.
The destroyer,
and then, also, he was really famous at the end of his career as Jerry Valiant, Gentleman Jerry
one of the
Valiant
brothers.
Yeah.
And talking about Heenan managed the Assassins, Guy Mitchell and Joe Tommaso, in Indianapolis, and that general neck of the woods, a highly successful tag team combination.
And that was Bobby Heenan's first managing gig.
That's right, yeah.
So Guy Mitchell, but the thing with Guy Mitchell, he would work a regular bout, as Guy Mitchell, but then, 2 bouts into the card, he'd come out again under a mask. So he was working twice on a lot of shows.
I hope he got 2 payoffs.
I kind of
never
doubt
know.
that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I know what that's about.
Yeah, yeah.
But that, it's really, he was one of the first to ever do that, work, as regular and under a mask on the same card.
But he always thought that as a bad guy, he preferred having the mask on because he was legitimately concerned about some of the fans who have been known to get involved. And there was one time in particular in Alabama, he was teaming with Happy Humphrey, who was that area's version of Haystack Calhoun, big, huge guy. And somebody jumped in the ring and stabbed one of their opponents 9 times. So he thought, well, they want me to be a bad guy, fine. I'm putting on the mask so they don't hassle me outside of the ring.
Oh, and he made his big-time wrestling debut on CKLW TV out of Windsor on November 5th, 1964, with Bull Johnson, and they lost to the Tolis brothers, John and Chris.
And there's another guy from Hamilton that I didn't mention, Bull Johnson.
Right, exactly.
And his son Danny.
Oh man, we can go on. They'll pop into our head as we go on.
Yeah.
But he did 3 years of TV, as an enhancement talent. Just wasn't getting a break anywhere.
Right.
He did make his Cobo Arena debut on September 30th, 1967, with Fred Atkins against Waldo von Erich and Baron von Raschke.
Ooh, the Germans.
Yeah, I mean, von Raschke, 67, 68, he was a mainstay in Detroit here.
Yes, he was.
Before he really, made a name for himself in the AWA.
He got his first big break here.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But that was as Guy Mitchell. But he made his debut as the Stomper in Detroit on February 1st, 1969, against the man of 1,001 holds, Al Costello.
Wow, that was the first of probably hundreds of times that they faced off in either singles or mainly in tag team combinations.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, he ended up winning, in the next year as, the Stomper, teaming with Ben Justice, when they won the tag team titles. But the thing is, prior, in 1969, he was feuding with Ben Justice, mainly around Toledo, as a heel.
Yeah.
Ben Justice was, a good guy back then, with the mask and all.
Yeah.
And, the Stomper was a heel.
Yeah, I can remember that very clearly, and that's when I first got to know him. And he was somebody who was very influential in helping me get established, because I got involved mainly through being a pest and being a friend of the wrestlers' wives, and he would bring his wife Carol to the matches a lot in Toledo, and she'd be sitting there all by herself before the matches started, and I said, well, what a good opportunity for me to go over and be nosy and find out stuff and get to know these people, and I did. I got to know Guy through her fairly well. As a matter of fact, they had me to their house one time in Beech Grove, which was quite something.
Yeah, he was a great friend to you.
Yeah, he really was.
And a great help, into your career.
Yeah.
And, we mentioned with, Ben Justice before, the famous incident versus the Kangaroos.
Oh, yeah.
Where, they broke the Stomper's leg. And that was the Stomper's opportunity to, take some time off and go over to Japan.
No, he healed quickly.
He did.
He was a quick
Wasn't
healer.
it like 6 weeks? I mean,
Yeah,
he put some Miracle Grow on his leg or something?
A little bit, yeah. Because I remember the next day they trotted him out or pushed him out on TV on Channel 9 or whatever TV it was at that time, and with his leg in a big cast, and he's vowing to come back and take care of the Kangaroos, and then, a few days later he ends up in L.A. and then in Japan.
Yep. And it wasn't long after that one of the biggest incidents with the Stomper happened at Cobo Arena.
Well, the Stomper and Justice, right.
Right.
This was a night where the Stomper and Killer Brooks had been going at each other, and they were matched in a singles match, in a boxing match for some reason. I don't remember the build-up to it, but the Stomper's second was Ben Justice, his longtime, trusted, closest
Good
personal friend in the world, Ben Justice, and Killer Brooks. Let's see who.
Which was seconded by Eddie Creechman.
Eddie Creechman. Okay.
And then at one point, I think in the match, Eddie Creechman was giving the referee the business.
And
you know, so the referee's back was turned.
Right. Yeah.
And what happened?
The other corner, all of a sudden, Ben Justice put the sleeper hold on Guy Mitchell, the Stomper, his friend, his tag team partner, and put him to sleep. And the Stomper lost that match to Tim Brooks.
Yeah, I think the referee was Al Bulldog Thomas.
That's right.
You know,
yeah.
he turns around to start, you know, round 3 or 4, whatever round it was, and there's, you know, the Stomper laid out, and, you know, give him the 10 count, and
that's it.
Killer
Yeah.
Brooks, you know, came out the victor in that one.
Yeah.
And just like Ben Justice, the Stomper's finishing hold was the sleeper hold.
That's right.
That's
yeah.
what it was known for.
Yeah. He was so effective with that hold, too.
Yeah, and he was, you know, a big-time wrestling mainstay for many years, you know, as an enhancement talent and as the Stomper, always a fan favorite.
Yeah.
But over time, he moved on, and he went all around the world, really, you know, wrestling. You know, he was in Georgia, he was in Texas, he was in Vancouver under a mask, he was in Hawaii and LA, and I mean, you just name the territory,
Yeah.
he made it there.
Yeah.
But at, you know, at one point, you know, while he was in his travels and, you know, really not settling anywhere in particular, a good friend of mine, this happened in 1979, back when it was the WWF, the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, you know, Vince McMahon Sr. that ran that. And at one point, their main tag team, Handsome Jimmy and Johnny Valiant,
Luscious John.
Luscious
Yeah.
John, yeah. They were like the biggest, hottest tag team, you know, basically in
yeah.
the territory and the
Yeah.
world at that time. And poor Jimmy came down with hepatitis.
Oh, boy.
And he wasn't able to wrestle at all. And the tag team being, you know, as big as they were at the time, McMahon, you know, wanted to keep that going, keep that heat going. So they reached out to Guy Mitchell, the Stomper, and asked him to come in and fill in for Jimmy while he was healing. And that's where they renamed him Gentleman Jerry Valiant.
Right, yeah. He bleached his hair again. Because I remember him in the early days when he was the Stomper, he had blonde hair when he was a bad guy.
Yep.
But so now he's blonde again as the Valiants.
Well, just like you and me. We had straight hair, and you and I got perms. We had curly hair. I
Now
had
we have-
blonde hair. Now we got no hair.
A huge part in their head. Yeah.
Yeah, so, and they really, you know, with the Valiants like that, once Jimmy became, you know, got back on his feet and was able to wrestle again, you know, they really started this trend of a 6-man tag team match, you know, which, you know, became, you know, historical throughout the, you know,
Right.
East Coast.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it started happening, promoters around the country started doing
Right.
these 6-man
Sure.
tag team
Yeah.
matches. But, you know, wait, wasn't there an incident, you know, while he was with the WWF? Tell me this thing that you mentioned to me, something about Oprah?
Oprah? Well, this is later. This is late. I think probably after his wrestling career was over, but he stayed with the WWF, WWF at that time. Yep. After the national expansion, he was working for them, hauling the ring around. He was a road agent. He ran the dressing room. He was a referee, a wrestler at times, whatever they needed. Right. That was the whole story of Guy Mitchell. He would get into whatever character, whatever position they needed. Well, one time in Chicago, at that time there was a morning show on WGN television hosted by Oprah Winfrey.
Wow.
Now this is before the national days.
Okay.
This is when she was just in
Local.
Chicago. Yeah,
Okay.
local in Chicago. And they did some kind of a tie-in with the WWF, and Oprah did commentary for 4 or 5 matches, and the lead commentator was Guy Mitchell.
Okay.
Jerry Valiant. I don't think he had the blonde hair anymore at this time, but he was still Jerry Valiant because that's how they knew him. And if you go out and Google WWF Chicago Oprah, or some combination of that, you'll find this tape out there and can watch Oprah standing on her chair cheering Hulk Hogan and Guy Mitchell trying to keep a straight face with her as the commentator.
Yeah, but as a wrestler, he had his last match September 10th, 1988, and he, in a losing capacity to Jim Powers, in Buffalo, New York. And, like you said, he became the road agent, and he did so much stuff, with the WWE. He had his ring, that traveled around by his home in Indianapolis, through Missouri, and anywhere that they needed that. And like you said, he'd wrestle and do anything that was needed of him.
Yeah.
And, he had also a business with his son.
Right, some kind of a
landscaping business.
Right, yeah. Always working, always making the money.
And then also, while he was doing that, he was also famous for, in the Indianapolis area at Christmas time, he always played Santa Claus for the kids.
Oh, wow.
I can't, here's, Santa Claus, the Stomper. But, he did that as Guy Hill or Guy Mitchell.
No sleeper holes on the little kids or anything like that, or pile drivers.
Now, also, I remember, because I was there, this would have been in Dayton, Ohio. I think this was 1971. That he was on the card when you did your first ring announcing gig.
Yeah, my very first. I remember he was so thrilled for me because he knew how much it meant to me, and I think he was glad that I got what I wanted and that they could have me in the wrestling business. But he was so cool. I can remember him just being so enthusiastic about it. Really meant a lot to me. Got in the ring and I was in there, shook my hand with a big smile on his face, gave me the rub. So all of a sudden the fans think, well, this kid must be something. The Stomper likes him.
Yeah, he was a friend to us both, and good guy in the dressing room. He was always, the first one to put his hand out, shake your hand when he saw you, whatever arena, whatever show you were at. Always accommodating me, when I was a photographer. Always willing to pose for pictures and stuff. Even in the ring, if he saw me there with my camera, he'd always give the snarl or a facial expression needed for a great photograph.
Real pro.
He was.
He really was. Very well respected for his ability. Held titles all over the country, even all over the world. Yeah.
And, he was one of those rare guys, too, that I always, can count on, very few fingers, that you never heard a bad word spoken about him in the dressing room.
That's true.
Yeah, none of the boys ever, said anything bad that I've ever heard about him.
I can remember one time, and this just came to me, in Toledo. After the matches were over on Thursday nights at the sports arena, we went downtown to Channel 24 and recorded promos for the next show. Okay. And I was there one night. I wasn't supposed to be there, but I somehow managed to be there because Eddie Jr. wasn't around. And so I snuck up there, and here we are, and the Stompers got two of his little dogs with him. They had two little white toy poodles. Okay. That's where they were, and they had the little jewel collars and things like that. So he's got in the studio the two little dogs with him. So they're going on, and he was scheduled for a match with Wild Bull Curry. And Bull Curry came in, and the two of them got into it, and all of a sudden the dogs started barking and ran into the shot.
And they bite the bull.
They were going to protect the Stomper against Bull Curry, and there was just chaos. And I don't think probably that many people actually saw it, but it was a real laugh.
Oh, that would have been great to see on tape these days.
Yeah.
But as a good guy as he was, he passed away March 10th in 2010 in Franklin, Indiana, where he lived. And he passed away from Alzheimer's. What a great guy, Guy Mitchell. And it was, an honor for me to do this segment honoring him. Yeah. And I hope, Guy Mitchell and Stomper fans really appreciate, the stuff that we had to tell today.
He never lets you down, in the ring or out.
Yeah. And in, closing as we usually do, Terry, in honor of the Stomper Guy Mitchell, can you give him one final ring announcement?
I will. My pleasure. From Hamilton, Ontario, weighing 250 pounds, the Stomper.
I'm really proud to say that I'm a part of IBW.
I take pride in IBW that we are a family-run company.
It's a fight. It's a sport. At IBW, tradition has always mattered.
You're going to see world-class professional big-time wrestling at its best.
This ain't no sports entertainment. This is professional wrestling.
International Big Time Wrestling's The Fix. Each and every week, your fix of IBW action. You want entertainment? Look no further than Rocks TV. International Big Time Wrestling!
Wrestling fans, if you like what you've seen, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and also don't forget to ring that bell.